What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 37, David vs. Goliath, Episode 3. Good episode. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and watching this episode was certainly a trip. Like, I was watching it, and my roommate was, like, across the room, and I was, like, making faces at the, like, computer screen because I was watching it on CBS Online, and I was making faces at the computer screen, and she was like, Alyssa, what are you watching? And I was like, I'm watching Survivor. Come on.
No, I texted Alyssa when I was watching it West Coast time, and I'm like, of course the female gets voted out last time, and then one of the minority people are on the block this time. Like, okay.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about how, like, we've made videos in the past about, like, racism in Survivor and sexism in Survivor. And I feel like sometimes seasons like this just prove our point for us, and we're like, yes. So it was interesting just because I personally wasn't happy with who went home. I don't know about you, Rachel, but I thought the other person they were looking at was a better choice to go home.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about it at Tribal Council because it's definitely it really depends. And we don't see enough, I feel like, from the episode to really understand. Like, okay, Jeremy was paranoid, whatever, like telling people about idols. But like, that's only 2 things out of 72 hours worth of time. So it's not really like we can make a judge decision because we don't know how they're interacting when it's like not on camera or not shown on the actual episode. So I don't know. I think that part is really difficult to tell. But going into Jeremy, we'll start with the Goliath tribe and then move into the David tribe. Last episode, Jeremy was so likable. I was like, what happened with this edit? I feel like last podcast, we were like, oh my God, Jeremy, he's talking with Mike. They're sharing stories. This episode, we learned about his father having Alzheimer's. I was like, wow, okay, something's going down. But then Mike foreshadows saying Jeremy is going to be his own worst enemy and doesn't want to be taken out with him. And I was like, uh-oh, maybe down the line, this would be a problem. I could see it being a problem kind of thing. But then it literally all went downhill one episode.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because last episode they focused a lot on like how annoying Natalie was and how Jeremy was trying to like get Natalie to be a better person. So I feel like this was kind of a reversal from last episode where they were kind of setting Natalie up as the villain. And then like this episode, she didn't get taken down. She ended up taking down someone who was actively trying to help her. And I was like, ugh. I do like the term Natalie Napalm though, because I do feel like it's very like interesting. It's a good word. I like it.
Yo, I really like her catchphrase too. Honestly, everyone should go into Survivor thinking of some cool catchphrases like that. So then it'll be like, oh, a thing or oh, a hashtag later. So you just have to start saying something a lot and make it catchy, like Natalie Napalm. And I don't know, I like that catchphrase. And honestly, yeah, maybe Jeremy tried to talk to Natalie last episode, like we saw, and Natalie didn't reciprocate. And then that triggered Jeremy to be like, oh, I hate Natalie kind of thing. We need to get her out at all costs.
Yeah, I do think that like Jeremy's intense need to get out Natalie kind of wasn't a good look on him. I feel like anytime someone gets really focused on getting out one specific person, that's when things like start going south for them because then it's like they become obsessive and they aren't as like self-aware as they should be. So
are you talking about
Jeremy?
Steven?
Yeah, but also Jeremy, because I feel like he was very much anti-Natalie this entire episode. And I feel like even if he had said something like, we can do someone else, but I really want to see Natalie out before the merge or something like that, that would have made him seem like a little less like he was balling super hard, because the eventual reason that he got voted out is people said like, oh, he's playing too hard. He's a threat. So
yeah, a lot of people thought he was very strategic, and that was their reasoning. We'll go with it. I mean, it makes sense when Jeremy talks with the group and his little like sit down meeting, because he realizes, oh, like he's a big threat kind of thing. But technically, we don't see it in the episode, but technically nobody was talking about Jeremy's name until he brings up the no strategizing rule. And then he sits down to everyone, tells them not to strategize. And I don't know, I feel like if someone else gave that talk, it would have come across better. Someone maybe more in the in crowd of the group, or someone less schemy looking kind of thing. Because once he gave that talk, it made people think like, oh, you know, maybe Jeremy would be a good option to vote out. Whereas before that talk, maybe they were thinking it, maybe they weren't thinking it. We don't necessarily really know. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where it would have been really different for Jeremy's edit if like they had shown people specifically talking about him while they were doing their little break-off groups. Like it would have made him seem, I feel like, more positive and even more strategic, because he would have read the room right and tried to do something about it. But I do agree that he definitely shouldn't have like had that whole hoedown, especially because it just wasn't a good look on him. So
yeah, like I don't know. The conversation made sense. You know, you don't want to ruin tribe dynamics if you're winning, kind of thing. Other people agreed with that aspect of it. Like, why start dividing if you have the upbeat momentum kind of thing? Like, we're winning. We don't need to strategize technically. But I don't know. I think it's hard to tell with the editing. You know, maybe other people agreed to his face, but they didn't really agree behind the scenes kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. I think this episode we see John talking to Angelina and asking, oh, what did you think of Jeremy's talk? And I think John had a really good edit this episode. We'll talk about him and the fish thing later, but like this was really good. I feel like because him and Angelina are talking, but John doesn't tell like the dirty secrets to Angelina. He asks Angelina how she's feeling, and then John agrees with her. So John isn't like bad mouthing Jeremy or starting rumors or whatever, but it's like the ask first, don't tell kind of thing. So he just agrees with whatever Angelina's saying. And I thought that was really, really good.
I thought it was also interesting because John got some like second person thing, because Christian and Gabby were like talking about him and talking about Slamtown or whatever. So I feel like this episode is definitely setting up an arc of some sort for John. Is like he did get some screen time last episode, because everyone got some screen time, I feel like. But this one I feel like is setting up kind of momentum for him. And I feel like it's also setting up momentum for Natalie to be a villain this season. So
yeah, which I'm honestly down for. Natalie, heroes versus villains too. Like, bring some of that napalm over. Yeah, I feel like on the Goliath tribe this episode, we really only saw a lot from like John, Angelina, Jeremy, Natalie, and Mike, maybe because he's friends with Jeremy, but everyone else, they had a little bit of screen time, not much. But yeah, Jeremy telling people about the idol. Honestly, I think this is where things went really downhill for Jeremy. Like, you haven't even gone to the immunity challenge yet. You don't even know if you're going to freaking tribal council this episode. And everyone is thinking that a tribe swap, something is going to happen in the near future. Why are you spilling the beans about this idol to everyone on the tribe? And this is where it went wrong, because like you're telling people in that core group of 6, and Allison, she was there, but like the core in-group squad, and then everyone thinks you're scheming, and maybe they would rather protect Dan's idol and the secrecy of the idol rather than voting out someone like Natalie, because Jeremy would tell everyone he has an idol, whereas maybe Natalie wasn't told that he has the idol this episode, so she doesn't know that information. And once tribe swap happens, Dan and the core 6, whatever, has a secret weapon.
Yeah, because like I think we've talked before how like the power of an idol isn't necessarily in the idol itself, but in the secrecy of an idol. Like you shouldn't tell people you find idols. And the fact that Dan found out to other people was already not super great. So Jeremy then spreading it further kind of makes Dan's idol less powerful, because it's like if everyone knows he has an idol, then they can plan to like flush it out or something.
Yeah, or idol nullify it. We don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't really make sense to tell people that Dan has an idol, especially when Jeremy makes the comment that he sees people having these side conversations. Like, why are you telling Kara that Dan has an idol? She probably knows Dan has the idol. And if she doesn't, if she hears that information, wouldn't she go back to Dan and tell Dan that, oh, you know, Jeremy's spreading this secret about you. Is it true? Is it not true? Kind of thing. And even Alec was like, oh, like when he heard about it, he felt like, oh, you know, maybe I'm not as close to Jeremy as one of my, or I'm not as close to Dan because he didn't tell me about the idol, but maybe they didn't believe Jeremy that Dan had the idol. We don't see any follow-up.
Maybe they just thought he was stirring the pot. Yeah, I feel like the edit this episode was kind of like confusing because it didn't really like, other than a lot of what Natalie said, it didn't really seem to give us a lot of direction as to what we should be feeling about the various players. Like whether or not they're telling the truth, whether or not they're being well received or whatever. So,
yeah, we really only hear things from sort of Jeremy's point of view. He just blabbed about the idol. I think that's where things go wrong because, okay, like whatever, he's paranoid, he has a talk with the entire group kind of thing. But once you cross the line and you're like, I've been looking through people's stuff, like, oh, did he show it to you? No, I looked through his jacket. That crosses the line and that goes into really sketch territory. Like, why would you want to play with someone who is willing to look through people's jackets? I believe Mike mentioned it as well, but like, you don't know what they're not willing to do for $1 million kind of thing. So I think that sort of pushed you over the edge to maybe have more things to vote Jeremy out based on rather than like, oh, he's sneaky and charming kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the reasons they gave for Jeremy going out weren't really supported by what he did this episode. Like, if he was really that charming, he would have been able to charm more people into keeping him. So,
yeah. So, Jeremy, well, sketchy, but, you know, I don't know. He says, so after the immunity challenge, Natalie wants to talk with a group of people, getting votes. Yes. Natalie also talks with Jeremy about, hey, can you help me or vote for someone else? Jeremy just shuts her down straight there. And it's sort of like, okay, dude, why not just say yes? You know she's probably on the chopping block getting a majority of the votes. You say straight to her face, like, no, I can't help you. Everyone's voting for you. But what kind of gameplay is that? Like, you never know what's going to happen. And now this person isn't wanting to be your ally, friend, vote giver, whatever, because you literally just told Natalie to her face, there's nothing she can do and she should just roll over and die right now before tribal council has even happened.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where even if they don't believe you, it's better to say, yes, I'll help you, than no, I won't.
Yeah, like, okay, like, I'll see what we can do, you know, don't know where things could change kind of thing, but like, do you have another name? But like, yeah, I don't know. I think Jeremy's management with Natalie was just bad this episode too. After he got triggered last episode into hating her and wanting to get her out, and then not letting Natalie talk to the group of people sitting on the beach. It's like, why have that big blow up fight? I was like, this is so stupid to watch. They're literally bickering on the beach and other people were around. At least fight in private if you're going to fight. You don't need to bring in other people. And then it's just really uncomfortable for everyone to watch two people fight.
Yeah, just secondhand embarrassment. Ugh.
Yeah, so I think good on Angelina, potentially. So she's the one who really spearheads the Jeremy to go. and saying like, oh, he's smart, charming, not trustworthy kind of thing. But I feel like the thing is here is maybe she's coming off too strong to the rest of the tribe because she's the one going to everyone and talking in big groups and telling them that the vote is Jeremy now. We don't really see anyone else on the let's vote Jeremy gung-ho train kind of thing. We only see Angelina as the one getting the different clips of people and her talking about, okay, it's Jeremy now. We see Mike say that he still wants to vote Natalie. Natalia and Alec also say they want to vote Natalie. So even though the vote did work out in Angelina's favor this episode, I feel like maybe it's a good thing. Maybe like great, she has a big move under her belt already, but maybe it could be bad if other people thought this episode that like, oh, she's really bossy or oh, she's too smart because she's voting out these big players. She's making big moves already. Could put a target on her back, but we don't know because we didn't see anyone else's point of view.
Yeah, I do think Angelina's like whole push to get Jeremy, like that was really cool because she said like, oh, this is what I'm good at, and then she proved it because she did switch the vote to Jeremy. But I was still kind of like, something about it still felt off to me, and I don't know why that is. So
yeah, like I like Angelina, like her saying the whole flirtatious, she's good at persuading, she does it in her everyday life. I was like, go girl. And then she gets the votes to go her way. I'm like, that's amazing. I think the only thing that could hinder this is if other people didn't receive what she was doing in the correct way and people ended up thinking that she's like, oh, bossy or too conniving.
Yeah, I feel like definitely seeing how she handles the fallout might help us figure out where / how like she's going to be perceived in the next couple episodes, like whether she's going to be kind of like the narcissistic dictator or just like behind the scenes kind of. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how that works for her.
Yeah, especially with a David Goliath tribe swap. It's definitely going to be difficult and interesting, I feel like, for all of the Goliaths to maybe rein it in, put their egos away, put all their bossiness, type A personalities away, and then align with some of the Davids kind of thing. And I feel like what will be the downfall for some people on the Goliath tribe is that they aren't willing to maybe cross the tribal lines or that kind of thing, or they're going to be like super boss dictator, towards the David tribe because they're like, okay, Goliaths are the CEOs like Natalie, but Davids are like your employee worker people, even though they shouldn't be treated that way. But maybe some people might think in their mindset that that is the way that they should be treated. So the people who will make it far are the people that can cross the lines, obviously, and the people who maybe are in like lesser Goliath positions than the people that are like Natalie's CEO. I feel like someone like Alec, who's more normal, will be able to relate more to David's rather than someone who's super Goliath.
Yeah, I feel like one of the things they said at the beginning of the Goliath Tribal Council that I was like, yes, this is true. Someone was like, from the beginning, it was just 10 egos all together. And like, yeah, I feel that. Because I feel like they were just like, I think we talked about this when we like originally talked about David versus Goliath, about how the hardest thing for Goliath is going to be the fact that they all have egos and all think that they're the best. So I think the swap will be interesting. The upcoming swap will be interesting for them because of that.
Yeah, so definitely that's how you play Survivor. Going into Tribal Council, I was like, I don't know why Jeremy would be saying all of these personal comments. I think that was the point. I was like, come on now, you're maybe on the chopping block, you're very paranoid, whatever, but like there is no reason to stoop down, especially at tribal council. Air out your dirty laundry at camp, not in front of Jeff Probst when you know it's probably going to make television because it's tribal council. Like, I don't know why you would need to stoop that low in order just to like have a dib at someone else.
I feel like it's one of those things too where in Survivor, what makes for the best television probably isn't going to make for the best game. Like Jeremy and Natalie arguing was great television, but it kind of did not do any of them favors as far as being seen as like good, competent people.
Yeah, I think Natalie won the argument. Jeremy was doing too many personal jabs for my liking. And Natalie's like the Natalie Napalm. I was like, yes, B word. Like, let's go.
Yes,
So maybe,
biatch.
yeah, maybe the majority core group, and then they bring in the everyone on the tribe, which I liked. I think it's always good, especially first vote, even though you have like the core six or whoever you want to say is in that core six. You bring in the rest of the three to make the majority 9 in order to vote out one person, because we see, like we'll talk about the David tribe, when you don't bring in everyone, it causes for more cracks and then people don't trust each other anymore. So at least everyone was aware of the plan this episode, and I thought that was really good for the Goliath tribe because I don't know, it's interesting in who you vote out. Both have their goods and bads. I think Natalie, you want to keep her. She won't win challenges, not that much of a physical threat because of that. Maybe not a good social game because she rubs people the wrong way. Maybe easy to take out later, but I feel like don't write her off because Natalie, I feel like, can definitely go very far and she'll slide by kind of thing. I mean, I like Natalie. I have her in my top 4 for winning the game, and I think I would like to see her go far. I think she can do it. For Jeremy, maybe he's more loyal, but Natalie also said that she would stay Goliath strong at tribal council, whereas Jeremy is athletic, sneaky, knows about the idol kind of thing. So it really, yeah, you have to weigh the pros and cons, I feel like, of who was better to keep versus who you should vote out on the tribe.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously if you're at tribal council, you're proving that a part of your like strategy, your like physical challenge strategy or whatever isn't working. And literally the reason that they failed was because Natalie couldn't do the puzzle well. So not only is she like not good at challenges, she's actively keeping them from winning challenges. So I would think it would be better to like take out Natalie and then hope that you continue to win. Because without Natalie, you might be able to win more challenges. And then you won't have to come back to tribal council. And then Jeremy being sneaky and conniving won't be a problem until the merge. So
yeah, it's also very true. It's very interesting because I feel like in earlier Survivor, the beginning of the season was always like, let's trim the fat, let's get rid of the weakest links every single episode until the merge or whatever. But now it's more like people are weighing, and maybe people are more selfish nowadays. People want what's best for their game over the game of the entire tribe. That's why Jessica gets voted out last episode. That's why Jeremy gets voted out this episode, because people are just looking out for themselves. And yes, everyone has the whatever tribe mentality, like we're all brothers, we're all family kind of thing. But really, everyone only cares for themselves. And I think it's very interesting because the entire game is shifting more to an individual game rather than like a tribal group game at the beginning. Because like, yes, okay, you do need groups at the beginning. You do need an alliance. But at the end of the day, one person is winning the game and you really can't rely on other people unless it's Laurel, and she'll never vote you out. So you want someone like that.
yeah, and no one in the season is really like Laurel, so you're kind of out of luck.
Sad. So talking about the Goliath tribe, last thing we have is Johnny Mundo. So this edit, I was like, wow, he gets this upbeat music, haha, so fun, when the fish is literally so small. I'm like, this is weird, but it really makes John super likable. He's talking about connecting with people and how he's getting better at everyday life skills, talking about pro wrestling with people. And I think, you know, he wants to work with Natalie. He says he trusts her, wants to work with her in the future. And I would really love to see the John, Natalie, Gabby, Christian alliance, or maybe no Gabby, but Christian, John, and Natalie alliance. I think that would be a powerhouse trio. Maybe put Nick in there if Nick is able to out Gabby. That would be a great foursome. I think that would be so cool to see.
That would be interesting to see. I feel like the thing with Johnny, like I said earlier in this episode, he didn't only get a good like edit like as himself. He also got it from like people who literally haven't even met him. And I'm just like, wow. I wasn't like coming into this expecting to like him just because like I feel like the general like persona that we see from like professional wrestlers and MMA fighters and that general thing is like not something that I vibe with, but I actually kind of like him. So I won't be mad if Johnny becomes like a bigger character in this.
Yeah, I'm very interested in his story. I think he can go far. I want him to bring in Natalie, Christian, Nick / Gabby, whoever's there. That would be such an interesting alliance. Those dynamics would be so cool. And like to see someone like Christian bossing around a pro wrestler or like strategizing with them and saying like, no, you're stupid. Like we shouldn't vote that way. Oh, such good TV. It'd be so fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm excited to see because I do think this season is shaping up to be better than a lot of the other seasons that we've had. So I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Yes. Speaking of going, we see after Tribal Council, we're going to go back in time right now. Nick and Christian place the blame on Gabby for why Jessica was voted out. So, like, Christian mentions it right at the top of the episode, then Carl and then B mention it, and then Nick agrees. He's like, yeah, Gabby's scary kind of thing. And now B is super against Gabby. She's the most vocal one about it. She gets the whole confessional, everything like that. And I mean, that just goes to show you can't leave people out on the first vote and draw those tribal lines. You need to bring everyone in on the loop. So you can't have B's being mad at you. That sounds weird.
Yeah, I'm interested as to why they think Gabby was the one to like do it, because the Mason-Dixon Alliance was bragging about how they were the ones in power, etc., etc., and it's like, you know?
Yeah, like, I think definitely good for Nick. Spreading this Gabby dislike depends about Christian. I feel like Nick playing it so well, sort of pinning the blame. He keeps Mason-Dixon lines safe because no one, if they went to Tribal this episode, would be wanting to vote out Nick or Christian because they view them as like sort of the swing votes or like, oh, we're in with them, so we need to keep them here. Whereas someone like Gabby, they're like, she voted my girl Jessica out. We can't trust her. So she doesn't really have that cross-tribal friendship that won't get her voted out. And I think Nick is doing great. He's not insinuating the Gabby dislike. So if Gabby hears that, like, oh, yo, Nick is throwing you under the bus, they can't really say that because Nick just nudges people on. And when someone mentions Gabby, Nick is like, oh yeah, she's so scary. I can't believe how fast the vote switched because of her kind of thing. That's not really any bad mouthing Gabby. That's just sort of maybe embellishing the truth. And you can't really get mad at someone or like, how do you say, oh, Nick is talking about you? But like, literally, he's technically not really saying anything bad. He's just saying personal opinion.
Yeah, and I feel like that's one of those things where good Survivor players will be able to kind of insinuate their like next step in their strategy or whatever without having to ever say it out loud. So then if the person does confront them, they can be like, I never said that. This is what I said. This person is the one who actually wants you out.
Yeah, exactly. Because now nobody can really pin the blame on Nick or Christian as well, because the whole Carl B. Davy group thinks that Nick and Christian were just persuaded at the last minute by Gabby to vote a certain way. And then Gabby was like the mastermind behind everything. And I think, honestly, cool, good idea for Nick to take out Christian's right hand person, because then you're not in like a threesome alliance where you might be the third spoke. You take out Gabby, and then now you are a definite pair kind of thing. But it's also very interesting because last podcast we were talking about how the fivesome that we saw vote majority last episode, we didn't really, there was no pecking order to, but now coming into this episode, we could create a pecking order, but I feel like it's too early to vote out Gabby. Why not use her? You just don't want her and Christian becoming closer than you and Christian and Nick are. If you're Nick, then you want to take out the third person. But Christian and Gabby don't have a name for their alliance, so Nick's already up there.
Yeah, it must not be that important. I feel like it's one of those things where in Survivor alliances, you always want to be the one that people are the most loyal to. So it will be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, you want everyone to come to you with the information, but you don't want to, I guess, promise everyone the world and then not be able to fulfill on your promises. And I do think it's too early for Nick to vote or try to get Gabby out. Them winning the immunity challenge definitely saved her today. Hopefully the tribe swap, she can get further. And it would be very interesting to see who would Christian choose to vote out if the time comes or when the time comes.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that time doesn't come soon, just because I think that it's better to let stuff like this fester a little while, and then the longer they wait with him in both alliances, the harder it'll be for him to choose. And I love that drama. I'm so ready for that drama in like
and then
3
it's
or 4
like The
weeks.
Bachelor, like, oh my God, who should I vote out? I like Nick platonically as a friend, but maybe I like Gabby more than platonically. Oh my God. And then Christian does some algorithms.
Yeah, he has to like get a stick and start drawing in the sand to figure out which one's better for him.
Do some like cost benefit analysis or some shiz. Speaking of, we go into the immunity challenge. Gabby saves herself. Glad David's won. The puzzle from last season when Wendell won immunity, I had it listed down as some of the DIY immunity survivor challenges that we should do. And since we've seen it come up in 2 seasons now, like, we definitely have to do it, Alyssa. This is such an easy puzzle. I feel like if you memorized it, you can totally win the immunity challenge, similar to Spencer's puzzle, which we do have a video on also.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool to do a DIY challenge with one of those like fence ropey thingies, because it's like, it doesn't seem that hard, but then if you actually do it and you have to like toss yourself over the fence, man, that seems so cool.
Yeah. And I think it's hopefully not ominous, but I do think it's sort of foreshadowing B getting hurt this episode in the immunity challenge. And then after the challenge, she's like sitting down talking about it. She gets a whole confessional about how she hurt her knee in wrestling. And it got a lot of screen time. So it's very ominous, potential med evac. I feel like, something is going to happen with B and her knee in the future, or else they wouldn't have put so much screen time on to B getting hurt this episode.
Yeah, because they had her say also, like, during the immunity challenge, like, oh, I really hurt my knee. And then Jeff was like, B, we'll have a medic look at your knee. And it's like, sometimes if people get hurt, you don't even know it until you read, like, the post-episode stuff. And they're like, oh, yeah, I got hurt. And medical looked at me, and it was fine. So
yeah, half the time people get checked out and we don't even see it or get heard mention of it. But Jeff mentions it. We see B with a wrap on her knee afterwards. And honestly, B going home would be great for Gabby, because I feel like B is the one who really dislikes Gabby. Carl, Davy, they're like, they're on the bandwagon because they have to be. So I think B going home would be the best thing for Gabby. I think it becomes very difficult if Bea and Gabby end up on the same tribe next episode, because then it would be very, very easy, especially because I guess David's might be down in numbers. It could be even, and then the odd person out is a Goliath. But it could be very, very easy for the Davids to just be like, we're not sticking together. Bea goes with Goliaths and wants to target Gabby, and Gabby goes with other Goliaths and wants to target Bea or someone else. So it could be very bad next episode if that happens.
Yeah, I feel like next episode is just going to be the Davids using the Goliaths to pick off other Davids, which is like,
I mean, it works technically, because after enough time, the Goliaths will have to trim the fat, and the people that are left, if you are getting pagonged or whatever, will make it further. And so that's a strategy I feel like someone should try to do. It always just happens accidentally, because I don't know why or who would go into Survivor. Like, we need to lose every challenge, so then we can intentionally Matt Sing ourselves in order to get further. Sort of risky, because you might accidentally go home.
Yeah, throwing challenges is just like eek.
Which, it was good Goliath went to tribal council before the tribe swap. Like we said last episode, sometimes you might have to throw a challenge because you need to figure out where people stand before you go into the tribe swap or merge or whatever, where it's more risky and you don't know where your people are. And so tribes that can make it to the merge without ever having to go to tribal, like, yes, great. You never had to potentially get voted out, but it's also bad because you don't know the information of where people lie.
Yeah, and I think also when you go to tribal before the tribe swap, you kind of get used to that. Like, I feel like if your first tribal is the one where you're like, after the merge, it's like you're not really used to strategizing at all. And then it's like, what do I do?
Yeah, so this was the third episode of Survivor. We're going to be talking about the tribe switcheroony next episode. We're so annoying. But yeah, let us know what you think of the Jeremy, Natalie, Napalm debacle fight from this episode. Who do you think is going to go home next episode? It's also exciting. I think the tribe swap could be very interesting, or it could fall short if it's a medical evacuation or it's some rando going home.
I'll be upset if another medevac happens at like a critical time, like right after the merge or right after the tribe swap, because the first vote was already canceled because of a medevac. But we'll have to see. So put all that stuff in the comments below, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.